Sick Harrison Price for August the 5th, 2025. I was almost going to say 2026. Let's not rush the years. They're already going by fast enough. Blake Price alongside Jeff Paterson, who's back for another tour as guest host. Thank you, Jeff. Matt's away for the rest of this week, and this show is a presentation of Bet365 coming to you from the historic Wall Center downtown. Big long weekend for us and for hopefully most of you out there as well. How was yours, Jeff?
Yeah, it was excellent. And we do it right around here by taking the Friday off. Like, it felt like a long
It felt like 2 weeks off for me, honestly.
I got to Sunday and I was thinking, like, I got to get back. No, I don't.
That's right. Monday was a total bonus, yeah.
So, no, it was good. We've got friends that have a really nice pool. Those are good friends to have.
The good friends.
Like friends with a boat, right? I don't want the maintenance and the upkeep, but they've got a nice pool, so we spent a lot of Saturday in and around their pool, so that was fun. Got out and golfed on Sunday and took it pretty easy yesterday, getting ready to return to the desk here.
Mother Nature abided. It was a very nice weekend on that, and a little bit of a murky week this week, but then next weekend looks great too, so enjoy summer, folks. We are so happy that you get to recharge. Hopefully you do. And we are as well. Today's poll question brought to you by Bogey Juice. Everybody knows birdie juice. Do you know what it tastes like? Probably not. Birdie's few and far between for me these years. We all get bogeys, though, so celebrate them. After your round, pour yourself some Bogey Juice. Apple ginger, delicious. Rumors of a new flavor around the corner as well. Head to bogeyjuice.com to order the juice or get your fabulous swag. Our question, does it matter to you that the Canucks don't have representation on Team Canada at the Olympics? We've got some Olympic news coming up here in just a moment, but we've talked about the pundits' picks for a lot of teams last week. Elias Pettersson being penciled in as the number one center for Team Sweden. That's Team Sweden. For Canada, ultimately, unless a mid-season trade, and we know there's something in the offing perhaps for the Canucks, unless a mid-season trade brings a Canadian Olympian here, it looks like there is 5, maybe up to 7 Canuck Olympians, but none of them on Team Canada, Jeff.
Well, now you got me interested. If they're going to acquire anybody that's on Canada's long list, then they've done all right. That's an upgrade. That's for a show for another day.
Yes. Yeah, hopefully we get that show.
Yeah, look, I don't think people should be too worked up. Is it better when you've got a local rooting interest? Maybe a little bit, but I mean, the field's so thin here in terms of Canadians that are on this current Vancouver Canucks roster. It's Jake DeBrusk, it's Tyler Myers, even though he was born in the States. You ask him, and I have, he's a Canadian through and through. He's represented Canada on the national stage. Now you've got Evander Kane, Pierre-Olivier Joseph, Archie Baines when he gets called up, but that's pretty much it in terms of the Canadian contingent. Now, of course, Rick Tocchet was going to be on the coaching staff, and he will be on the coaching staff. He's just not on the Canucks coaching staff anymore.
And that helped, I think, for the Four Nations. Even that, I think, added something, you know?
Yeah, no, there's that connection that hey, one of us is there, even if it's not on the ice, it's behind the bench. So just coming from that angle that, you know, the field was so thin, I think people recognize that, well, Jake DeBrusk had a nice season and is a legitimate goal scorer. He's not at the Olympic level. And Tyler Myers, unless he somehow finds a fountain of youth here, going on 36, he's not going to be in consideration for an Olympic roster spot and wasn't on the long list here that was released over the weekend. So I have to think, and we'll let the poll run its course over the day here, but I have to think most people are okay understanding that it's not like there's a snub in the bunch.
No, there's certainly not a snub. It's more the lack of candidates, as you talked about. Like, this is a team that, well, hey, Bo Horvat got the call for this long list, which is nice for him. And, you know, that was the last time I think that people sort of dreamt the big dream, if I'm not mistaking anybody. I mean, they were at the start of that first contract for Tyler Myers. But that's about it.
Well, and it brings up, and I've already seen this in the comments to the poll question too, it does bring up this whole other issue of there's just not enough Canadians on this Canucks team.
Yes.
And sure, we hear that on the regular, but this roster is what it is for now, and so that's not going to change heading into next season. That yes, they have elected to go. And again, I've long held the belief that if all the Canuck players were from Mars and they somehow managed to win the Stanley Cup, I think people would be okay with that.
That's true.
It's not about the origin story here, but it's also a fact that, yeah, they just don't have a lot of Canadians on the roster.
And guess what? There's been a lot of Canuck incarnations that have had a lot of national team Canadians, Jed Jovanovski, Trevor Linden, the like. Those teams didn't win the Stanley Cup either. So for those of you pounding your fists on your collective desks saying they would win if they had Canadian, they've had the Canadians, the elite Canadians on the national team. Didn't win. By the way, as for Bo, I think if he repeated his 23-24 season last year, remember 33 goals, 35 assists for 68 points as a center, I think he'd have an even more legitimate chance. Dropping to 28 goals, 57 points, I think he needed to be on fire to catch their attention to actually make the Olympic team, but he's got good utility. He doesn't play a lot of wing. We haven't seen him. He hasn't needed to. But, you know, he can win some face-offs, and he's just...
If he was a penalty killer, I've always thought that it's not about goals and assists. You've got McDavid and McKinnon and the guys to do the heavy lifting there. For Bo Horvat to make his way onto the team, the final cuts, if he brought a little more... And again, he always profiled as a guy that should have been a better penalty killer. Mm-hmm. And it just never really seemed to be here in Vancouver. So that may be what ends up haunting him in terms of his aspirations to be part of an Olympic team, is that when you look at the other areas that he can contribute and the versatility and the utility that he brings, if he was flat out one of the best penalty killers in the National Hockey League, that would do a whole lot more for his stock. Alas, he is not. And so good on him for getting the invite to the long list here, the 42 that are going to be gathering in Calgary later this month. I still think Bo's a long, long shot ultimately to make the Olympic roster.
By the way, both hockey rinks there was a temptation maybe to say also on bigger ice, is Bo good enough skater? Is he laterally a good enough skater? It's not Olympic ice. Olympic ice is NHL ice now. They have changed the definition of what Olympic ice is. There are still European arenas that boast the larger ice surface for sure. That will not be the case for these Olympics. It's going to be NHL ice. So that doesn't really come into play, which is actually maybe a good thing for Bo because he fills up the space, skates north-south very well. I think he would need to have a heck of a start to grab sort of enough of a spotlight to demand to be on that team. But I feel good for him that he gets the invite to this at least. This is going to dovetail to our top story today, presented by Yellow Dog Brewing, Yellow Dog Spirits, Neighborhood Brewing, and Foolish Wine. The men's and women's long lists have arrived. They weren't touted as the long lists necessarily. This is unofficial, but an announcement of an off-ice orientation camp later this month in Calgary. 6 months to go right now before the Olympics, and it's an early look at the possibilities and changes that are possible for Team Canada going into the Olympic Games. Mentioned Horvat is there. 7 BC boys will be in attendance, albeit no Canucks as we tackled. Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini, Sam Reinhart, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Shea Theodore, Devon Taves, and Aiden Hill all invited to the party here, this off-ice party at the very least. What steps out for you here, Jeff?
The thing that really jumped out at me, Blake, was that only 3 goalies are on this list. Now, this is a long list. If you aren't in Calgary at the end of the month, it doesn't preclude you from making this team with a big first half of the NHL season. And look, Canadian goaltending is always going to be under the microscope. I get that. I guess I thought maybe you would go broader than just 3 candidates, even for an orientation camp. But Jordan Binnington, Aiden Hill, Sam Montembeault, those were the guys that were at the Four Nations. There were some questions then about Canadian goaltending. Ultimately, Binnington rose to the challenge, and Canada won the gold medal. So Binnington's got the inside track there. I just thought that even the goaltending list might have been a little bit longer. When we talk about longer in the tooth, I guess, Drew Doughty getting invited again and has represented this country remarkably well. Doughty, Sidney Crosby, Brad Marchand, John Tavares, the oldest guys on that list. Sid, I think, is going to be on that team. The way Marchand played in the playoffs and is still going strong, I would imagine that he's probably penciled in, if not already an indelible ink. Tavares feels like a bit of a long shot.
Yes.
Had an incredible season last year in Toronto, but I would think would have to have that sort of production rate over the first half to really warrant consideration. Again, we're talking best on best of the best here, and good enough's not good enough ultimately to make some. There's going to be difficult decisions. No issues with Tavares being included, but I think he and Doughty probably at some point there is a changing of the guard, if you will. And I guess one of the other things that jumped out at me when I looked at, you think of how much talk in this market about the quest to find right shot defensemen. This is the list of potential right side guys that are going to this orientation camp for Canada. Cale Makar at the top of the list, obviously. Noah Dobson, Evan Bouchard, Aaron Ekblad, Colton Parayko, Mackenzie Weegar, and Drew Doughty. Oh, and Brandon Montour as well. I think we'll be all right on the right side.
Yeah,
in
that's
Italy.
A pretty good list. Yeah.
So it looks like it might be easier to make the team as a left side guy. Thomas Harley, Josh Morrissey, Shea Theodore, Devon Taves, and there was one other, Travis Sanheim. So those are the defensemen that were invited. I don't see any obvious omissions from that list.
Does Evan Bouchard have a chance to make this team?
I think he does. I think he does.
I mean, you can argue power play, but I mean, Cale Makar is there, so
right. And then,
unless you went 2, but that would be really old school to have a Bouche bomb, a point shot being utilized. He can certainly run power play 2, I suspect.
And that's where I guess I would look at him as probably a third pair guy, but maybe second unit power play. These are the types of decisions, and it's not as simple as, how many points do you put up? It's where do you slot in this puzzle of trying to put together the best team, not just the best cast of individual players. And so some guys, as we always see, are going to be asked. You talked about Horvat, maybe sliding to the wing. There will be other guys, obviously, that are natural centers that are asked to play the wing. And if you're a top pairing guy in your club team in the NHL, you may have to accept that on a list like this with this many impressive names and resumes, you may drop down to being a third pairing guy. You may be the extra defenseman, and maybe that's the lot in life. But I do think Evan Bouchard has a chance, certainly a legitimate chance, of making this team. I don't know that he does. I'm really curious to see how Noah Dobson's season goes in Montreal after the trade. But I think Noah Dobson has put himself in strong position to be considered there. And then, as we said, I know some people dump on Aaron Ekblad. All he's done is win back-to-back Stanley Cups with the Florida Panthers. It's hard to poke a hole sort of in his game if you're not asking him to do too much in a tournament like this one. I don't think you'd be asking him to do too much. So, there's going to be those tough decisions, and ultimately there's going to be really good players that are left on the outside looking in, but that's the beauty of a country like this one. We could stack 2 teams and be competitive in a tournament like this.
The one interesting thing for me is we've not got a surefire goaltending group here.
Yep.
Binnington will have to be usurped by somebody having a fabulous year based on his performance at the Four Nations face-off. But everybody was pretty surprised at the time that Logan Thompson wasn't considered for that Four Nations phase. And they're only inviting 3 guys to this off-ice. Again, this isn't legally binding. Doesn't mean Logan Thompson can't be a part of the group that goes. But people were pretty surprised.
Yeah, and Darcy Kemper had an incredible season in Los Angeles behind a good defense. But I guess, and you're right, this is just an orientation camp in summer, so I don't want to get too far down the road. But I just think if you bring 5 goalies and they know that there's only 3 spots, it at least opens their eyes to the idea
there's
of competition.
Yes.
This feels like, all right, you guys were there at the Four Nations.
It worked.
Yeah.
So you guys are the ones invited back.
I would have invited at least one more goalie just because.
Yeah, I would have too. And I mean, where are you on Binnington? Like,
He was excellent at Four Nations. I know that there are a lot of people that don't love regular season Jordan Binnington, but it's impossible to argue with the way that he leveled up in overtime in the Four Nations final. Again, on a team like this one, like, you want to believe that the team in front of him is good enough that he doesn't have to be the best player.
Yeah.
But Canadian goaltending is always going to be open to questions and concerns, and I get that, and that comes with the territory. But I do think that he won some people over with his performance at the Four Nations, and right now, absolutely, Jordan Binnington got the inside track to being the starter, but look, he's got to be healthy, he's got to be playing well, so there are factors that will go into it before the decision is made. You asked me what jumped out at me. I talked about some of the older guys. I like the fact that, and no-brainer, obviously, Bedard and Celebrini to be a part of this one, but...
Well, a part of the camp.
Yeah.
Can you envision, I think Celebrini's a dark horse to make the team.
Fair enough.
Bedard needs to be otherworldly, I think.
But I like the fact that, like, Quentin Byfield and Seth Jarvis and Wyatt Johnston, all guys that are sort of 23 and under.
Yep.
You're giving them the chance. You're putting them on the hook here and giving them the sense that they belong. You, I think, make it comfortable for guys to be in a room with Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon, even at a camp like this one, that if they do make the big league team and they're the Olympic team and they walk through the doors or on the flight, there is a comfort level right then. It's not just, oh, that's Sidney Crosby. Oh, my goodness. Like, you've been in a room with him. You've been to a camp with him. And so I like the idea that they included. And look, they're there on merit. I mean, these are all incredible hockey players, but I like the fact that there is some fresh blood in the mix. I just hope that they warrant strong consideration, that it's not, all right, this group won Four Nations, this is the group we have to move forward. No, I want the guys that are playing the best when the final decisions are made for the Olympic roster.
Bringing the Canucks angle back into this now, we mentioned we think there's at least 5 Olympians, upwards of 7, depending on what Demko and Marcus Pettersson can potentially do. Do you want to list the 5 that you got there?
Well, Quinn Hughes, obviously. Yeah. Elias Pettersson, we talked about him the other day. Philip Hronek, Teddy Bluger, and Kevin Lankinen, I think, are the 5 for me. Now, Thatcher Demko, outside possibility. If he gets back to form, I think Team USA will certainly be keeping tabs on him. But I think he's got some ground to cover just because of how much action he has missed here over the last little while. Pettersson wasn't on either of the lists when we touched on the Swedish team on Daily Faceoff the other day. Marcus Pettersson was not.
He is, Captain Swede, if you will, at World Championship levels. But
they picked 8 defensemen. If they expanded to 10, he might have been on a longer list there.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, like, is Philip Hedl on the radar for Czechia? Maybe, but again,
has to be a pretty good season.
Yeah.
This is where Canada or the Canucks lose out a little bit, though, is without the Canadians' options on their roster. Like you mentioned, guys like Byfield, guys on the cusp of stardom in the league. Like, can you imagine what their October and Novembers are going to look like? Like, if you're the Los Angeles Kings, aren't you pretty excited to see what Quentin Byfield, after attending this camp, looks like? And a lot of those other players, guys like Nick Suzuki and like bubble guys for Team Canada. Like, are they just going to be shot out of a cannon? Because a guy like Elias Pettersson, does he want to have a good start for all the other reasons? Yes. But as long as he is decent, average, he's on Team Sweden. Like, Elias Pettersson is going to the Olympics.
Yep. Of
the 5 guys that you mentioned, Teddy Bluger's already been announced on Team Latvia. He's one of the original 6 there or whatever, or 5 that every team announced. Like, there's not a lot of guys on the bubble of those Olympians that you talked about. It'd be nice to have one of the fighters on your team that is just like every night's an audition. Like, you could have said that last year, but they know what a calendar looks like. They know they had more runway left.
Yep.
They don't really have that. They've got maybe 2 months, maybe 6 weeks to start the season.
No, I hadn't thought about Quinton Byfield taking out his frustrations on the Vancouver Canucks in an effort to make an impression. But you're right. The flip side of that is that, like, Drew O'Connor was part of Team USA that won at the Worlds in the spring. He's not on the U.S. Olympic radar at all.
No.
They went pretty deep to round up a roster that went and played and ultimately won the World Championship for the first time since whatever it was, 1933. And good on them, and that's a memory they'll have. But Drew O'Connor at that level is not Drew O'Connor. Oh, that's a springboard to Drew O'Connor being on the radar of Team USA.
If Brock Boeser's got 15 goals on December the 1st, does he have a shot?
I think he's in tough. Again, he's a goal scorer, and that's great. But
there's a lot of them.
There are a lot of them, and he isn't a penalty killer. He's not a face-off guy. He's he's developed into a player that coaches trust late in games, but best on best. And I know he held out hope at the outset of last season that a big start would put him on the radar for the Four Nations. Ultimately, had the concussion in November, didn't have anywhere near the same type of season that he had in the 40-goal year, and missed the mark. And it wasn't a surprise. I don't think many people thought that Brock Boeser was going to be part of the American roster at the Four Nations, so I think he put him in the long shot category to be part of the Olympics.
On the flip side here, we have to get to know all of them, obviously, but we know some of the members of the fledgling Vancouver PWHL team that are on that same list for the women's camp, led by Sarah Nurse, who will undoubtedly be the face of this franchise when they eventually get a nickname. Can we get a nickname, please? But Jennifer Gardner, Claire Thompson, Emirates Mashmeyer, and Sophie Jacques. Hannah Miller's on this team as well, theoretically, but she has some IIHF eligibility hurdles right now to get through. She's on the list, She's on the camp list. Whether or not she's on the team or can even play on the team, we'll see. Because Hannah played for China?
I think that's right.
So we'll see. As well, BC content, teen phenom Chloe Primorano from North Vancouver, 18 years of age. And I've heard that name for a lot of years with a couple of girls in minor hockey. So we'll see if she can make the team. So the men lacking Vancouver representation, but the women in BC are at least represented. So that's good. USA will be good.
Just as an aside, I think I saw this, but did PWHL Vancouver do some sort of media blitz here in town on the Friday of a long weekend? That's a curious choice.
It was.
They
got good weather.
They did. The things that I saw on TV, the backdrop, they were down at Canada Place.
Yeah.
It looked spectacular. But, the August long weekend, the Friday of the long, it seemed like an odd time to be banging the drum. But I suppose they're trying to sell tickets.
Yes.
And get the faces of this franchise out there. As you said, I do think it would help if they had a name and some uniforms. I mean, those will come in time. I get that. But just calling it PWHL Vancouver,
it's getting cumbersome now.
A little bit.
Now that we have a team. Now that we've got actual team
Give
members.
us a name.
Yes.
Go.
And by the way, we will have some content on that front going forward. Paths have not been able to cross just yet. USA will be good at this Olympic tournament. Quinn Hughes, health permitting, will be added, of course. It was not available for Four Nations face-off, as we know. Matthew Tkachuk's health problems go back to that point. Assuming full health for Matthew Tkachuk, pretty important player for that team. Jack Hughes wasn't very good. His injury problems might have gone that far back as well. And they are motivated. This quote from Bill Guerin to NHL.com: "We have to win. We have to win another one of these. It's been since 1996. We just have to find a way." End quote. Jeff, they were good at Four Nations. On judges' cards, might have won. They are overdue, I think. Not saying it's a fait accompli. Canada can't win. That's not my statement here. But generally in sport, Buffalo Bills of the 90s notwithstanding, very, very elite teams get theirs eventually.
Well, I think at the tip of the spear now, it's a level playing field with Canada.
Yeah.
The top 25 players on both teams, you saw it. I mean, Four Nations went to overtime before Connor McDavid ends up winning it. But if it wasn't for a few of those saves by Jordan Binnington, Austin Matthews had his chances in overtime. No, I mean, you go through the American roster, and whether it's Matthews or the Tkachuk brothers, JT Miller, on it goes. And then, the Hughes brothers. And talking about motivation, you know how much it crushed Quinn not to be available for the Four Nations. He's going to do everything in his power to, A, stay healthy, but make sure that his game is where it needs to be to get that best-on-best experience. And so, for Bill Guerin to say 96, of course, that was the World Cup. In terms of the Olympics, go back to 1980, the Miracle on Ice. So it's been a long time coming. Yeah. And we're still a broader hockey nation, but the Americans have closed the gap there as well, just in terms of development models and systems and opportunities and ice rinks and all those things. So, yeah, I mean, it's great. I love the fact that that's now the number one rivalry is Canada-U.S. And we've seen it on the women's side forever, but I think we've reached that point now and things like the Four Nations. If people wondered, does the Four Nations matter? Well, you see a quote like that from Bill Guerin. Absolutely it matters. And I think the higher the stakes, U.S. pushed Canada to the overtime in the Olympics here in 2010. So they were that close then. And I think, again, they've just narrowed the gap over that time. So it'll be interesting to see. I still think Canada believes it goes into all these tournaments as the favorite. But on paper and on the ice, I mean, it kind of feels like it's a push right now.
I mean, the women have been toe-to-toe, of course, for a few decades. Yep. And the Americans win their fair share. It goes back and forth. It is a heavyweight tilt on the women's side. It just seems like they're. I'll be honest. I had a really bad feeling in the Four Nations face-off. The final, just throughout the tournament. I thought, because it isn't the highest of stakes, it isn't the brand name of the Olympics or Canada Cup or World Cup. It didn't have those branding. And it was just a four. I thought maybe the edge isn't sharp enough for the Canadians to actually get to the top of the mountain here. I thought, and I thought, honestly, if they're going to give them one, wouldn't that have been the one to give them versus an Olympics, a year and a half later or a year later? We'll see. But it just certainly feels like it is inevitable. Just to reiterate, Jeff, I didn't miss anything Canuck related, did I? They didn't make any news?
No, they certainly did not make any news, which in some ways is news in and of itself because we have seen Patrick Allvin get after it on long weekends in his time as the general manager. But really the only Canucks news was that Braden Coots ended up missing the final couple of games of that summer showcase. Was banged up. Yeah. Dale Hunter, the head coach, said it wasn't serious. There were a handful of guys that they elected to sit out. So I don't think there's reason for concern here. But for a guy that needs to push to make his best case, any missed time is a missed opportunity. So again, it's early August. I think there'll be plenty of time for him to be ready to start his Western Hockey League season and attend his first. It's not a young stars, but they've got that mini battle with the Seattle Prospects that I would think he would be a part of, and then of course a main camp as well. So there's lots of time for Braden Coots to heal up, and I think part of it. Some people wonder, why did the Canucks seemingly rush to get him under contract? And he was one of the first guys from this year's draft class to sign. I think part of it is once you get a player signed, he's under club control now. The Canucks can bring him in and they can have their doctors look at him if they had any reason for concern, even in the middle of summer. So Canucks will certainly make sure that he gets the best treatment necessary if there is treatment required. Or if it's just a case of resting up and maybe staying off skates for a little while, whatever the case. Didn't get the specifics of it, hockey culture. But even in summer, although we didn't get a lower or upper body on this one, but unfortunate for Braden Coots to have to skip the last couple of games of the summer showcase.
Let's place really crazy and undue expectations on Braden Coots. Is he the next Canadian Olympian to play for the Vancouver Canucks?
Well, it's funny you're articulating that because that crossed my mind. And again,
Sawyer Minio, maybe, if all goes perfect for Sawyer Minio.
And again, it's a numbers game where they're not drafting
A ton of Canadians.
7 Canadians each year.
No.
So, maybe Braden Coots is our next great hope to be, what would that be? 2020?
Yeah.
2034?
Give him 8 years.
Yeah.
Give him 8 years for sure, yeah. No news, but a public appearance. Jake DeBrusk found his laptop in the middle of the summer and jumped on with our man John Shannon, who we hope to have on in just a little bit here on today's show. But DeBrusk has thoughts on where he thinks Elias Pettersson's game will be. We'll play the clip for you here and how he also thought last year went down between him and Pettersson.
The left winger, I look at a lot of opportunity, and I don't think I did necessarily a good enough job for him last year. I think that it always going to get, personalized in terms of stats and, what's everyone's points like and things. But I don't think when I was playing with him, I gave him my best game either, in fairness. I think we're figuring each other out, and it took some time. But I think I think that PD, is going to have a good offseason. He's going to come back in good shape. And the skill is there. You know what I mean? Like the skill, his hands, his vision. And I don't think you can teach some of those things. You can teach the other things. And I have a lot of faith in him. I mean, I signed a 7-year deal to play with him. So, I believe in him more than probably most.
Jake DeBrusk talking about Paterson, and that is a good sign. He seems to have unabashed faith, and hey, everybody's on pace for 100 points at this stage in the season. But you can read tone there, and it sounds like a guy who believes every word that he's saying at the very least.
Well, I'd say what a hell of a teammate to basically take some of Elias Pettersson's struggles on himself and say, I wasn't good enough. You still set a career high. You scored 28 goals, and you did it with your center who basically had one arm tied behind his back all season long. So, when I look at Jake DeBrusk's first year in Vancouver at $5.5 million to get to 28 goals the way that he did, and remember too, like he started the year and he was signed to play with Pettersson. The whole idea was, they're going to go get Elias Pettersson, a proven goal-scoring winger, and Jake DeBrusk was the guy. He came in, he had training camp with Pettersson, started the first couple of games, and then Rick Tocchet started to explore, and DeBrusk was the guy that bounced around. At one point was as low as the third line, didn't stay there very long, but it took a while. The other thing, remember Jake DeBrusk didn't score a goal until they went out on that California road trip in early November. Like he went, I think, the first 9 games. He scored in the preseason, but in terms of making his mark early on, and anytime any guy, especially a big signing, a splashy signing, he wants to make a mark early on and put a puck in the net. And it was 9 games for Jake DeBrusk, and it started to build. But, all things considered, I think his 28 goals is even more impressive considering the guy that he was brought in to play with and the guy that he did play with most of the season wasn't anywhere close to good enough.
Yeah, do you think that the two skill sets match? Like, is that the right guy for Elias Pettersson, having watched 60-odd games of it?
I think it can work. I think when Petey's on his game, he's a terrific playmaker. We have seen that. We didn't see it last year. Now, Jake DeBrusk, half of his goals came on the power play. So if there's an area of room for improvement, it would be at 5-on-5. And that's where you'd like to think that Elias Pettersson can and will be better as well. So, I want to believe that there are better days ahead. There have to be. They're both under contract for a while here. And as Jake said, he signed for 7 years thinking he was going to get to play with Elias Pettersson. So we'll see how that all shakes down. But I guess, I learned a fair bit about Jake DeBrusk. I've watched him in Boston, but didn't watch every game and didn't analyze him all that closely. I was surprised how many greasy goals he scored. Mm-hmm. And there's an art to that. You got to be willing to get to the front of the net. You got to time it right. You got to find loose pucks when they're in skates and those types of things and through traffic. But I thought with his speed that maybe we'd see him a little more noticeable on the forecheck, and maybe there'd be a chance to score a few more off the rush. He scored a couple of goals off the rush. I can think of a few off the top of my head. But for the most part, as I look back on Jake DeBrusk's first season in Vancouver, it was just, pucks squirting free, and he was in the right spot. And some of that's good luck, but some of it's good positioning. So, without a crystal ball, it's hard to know how it's all going to shake down ultimately. But I have to believe that if Elias Pettersson is back and anywhere close, and I'm not expecting 102-point Elias Pettersson to return, but 75, 80-point Elias Pettersson, I would think that I think Jake DeBrusk would benefit a fair. If Elias Pettersson's getting to 80 points, it means he's setting people up to score goals, and I would think that Jake DeBrusk would be on the trigger end of a few of those.
And chemistry isn't always instantaneous, even at the elite level. Like these guys are at, and who knows, maybe the locker room atmosphere didn't exactly aid instant chemistry in this case. But he even talked later in the interview about playing with Quinn Hughes, who, he says is just such a marvel. Like, you've got to try to get to his, brain wavelengths to be able to play at his level. And he said that even that took time for him. Which, maybe there's a similar thing with Pettersson as well. He didn't say that, but maybe there is.
And I get where he's coming from. If you're trying to figure out Quinn Hughes, I mean...
What's Quinn Hughes thinking?
Well, yeah,
Good luck.
We've seen teams try to defend him, right?
Yeah.
And so as a teammate, do I go over here and is he going to find me, or should I go over there? And in the meantime, Quinn Hughes has spun around and he deked through 3 other guys. I think really it comes down to Quinn's got this vision that if you get yourself open, like the great players, he'll find you. And that would take some getting used to. And I think you can apply it to a lesser degree. And I'm not comparing Connor Garland to Quinn Hughes, but remember early in his time with the Canucks, there were a lot of guys, teammates, that like he's so unique with the spins and, sort of the creative plays in the short stick and everything else that he was difficult to play with, and I don't mean difficult in guys didn't want to play with him. It was difficult to read off Connor Garland because I think even Connor Garland wasn't sure what he was going to do next.
Yeah.
And so it was tough to sort of, figure out what the next move was going to be because even Garland himself didn't know. So, yeah, I mean, look, I would like to think that for any player, a second go-around in a city with a team, and there's been some turnover and a new coaching staff, although the head coach now was the guy that was here. So, DeBrusk already has some familiarity with Adam Foote, but I just think on a comfort level, coming back for a second year, you know where everything is, you know who the people in the organization are, and they're not just faces. Everything should be a little bit simpler for Jake DeBrusk, and hopefully that translates into even more goals. That said, it's a big ask of anybody to expect him to continue to set career bests, right? Like he got to 28. I believe he can be a 30-goal scorer. Can he be a 35-goal guy? That kind of feels like the top end. Like that
might be that one career year spike.
Yeah, I'm not I don't see Jake DeBrusk and think automatically, there's 40 goals, but 30. Yeah, there's no reason playing top line minutes on an NHL team and having success in the power play the way that he did. I think he has to be shooting for 30 for the first time in his career this coming season.
Put those extra 2 goals in the opening 9 games that you talked about. There
exactly.
You go.
No, you're right. I mean, it can be as simple as something like that.
He spoke about expectations and he compared it to Boston where, they'd lose high-end players like Krejci and others and they'd be written off by the fans and, they'd still perform well. So he says he wants to bring that sort of mentality that even if on paper people are criticizing the look of a roster, that they can usurp that and use it as motivation. But on the market as a whole, market reaction, he didn't bite on this being a crazier market than even Boston, which we know is a hockey market. But made a remark like it's Canada, so there's that. So he admitted that there's a certain level of fervor that comes with being in the Canadian market, but he said he's going to reserve total judgment on the market until he's seen it in the playoffs, because that's the high watermark he's seen in Boston. So he admits, until you've seen this market in the playoffs firsthand, he doesn't yet have the full report card, which is fair.
Yeah, and look, he played in the Stanley Cup final in Boston in 2019. Like, he has seen the league at its height in terms of coverage and just an appetite for any morsel of news. And look, Boston's one of the great hockey markets. They're an original 6. That said, if there's a guy that could handle just about any media market, it's Jake DeBrusk. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
No.
I mean, look at Louis and the work that he does on Hockey Night in Canada and with the Oilers, and has developed into, I think, a terrific analyst. And he's just naturally he's got the gift of the gab, and so does Jake. And Jake's a great conversationalist. He's fun to talk to. And I listened to the entire podcast there with John and Landon Ferraro, and, not a surprise that relaxed, engaging, whether it's in season or even here in the summer, he's just a natural talker. And so they asked him at one point about media coverage here specifically, and he said, for me, so far it's been fine. And, we'll see how it goes. This was year one of a lengthy contract, but he just doesn't strike me as a guy that gets too wrapped up or too hung up on just about anything. Pretty easygoing guy.
Hope to have a chat with John Shannon on this later on. John's been delayed a little bit, but we'll hopefully get to him here this week on this. In the meantime, we'll turn the page. No Thomas Müller signing official just yet from the Whitecaps. It was supposed to be Friday. There was talk maybe Monday. It looks like there's some paperwork issues that are happening. Now, Müller is still doing his part at the very least. He's back at training with Bayern. He is staying fit. No reports of anything going wrong, by the way, with the acquisition. It just sounds like it's bureaucracy and paperwork here. But very good to see the player is staying fit. And when you actually click on a couple of the videos, some of which we'll show here, he's quite engaged. Like, he is directing people where to go. Like, this is a guy that is...
You can't tell me where to go. You don't play here anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of what I would say if I was one of the players he's talking to. But it's like
don't you have a flight to catch?
He's like a coach there. But if you're a Whitecaps fan, I'm loving this. Because, again, I think if Fanny Sartini was given truth serum about Stuart Armstrong's acquisition last year, he liked the player just fine. Didn't like the way the player arrived. I don't think we're going to see that, 4-week lead up like we saw for Stuart Armstrong last year.
Yeah, and look, through his career, this is a player that's been known, for work habits, for leadership, and even as he ages, those types of things don't go away. How many times do we hear this management group talk about the time they spent with Sidney Crosby, right? I think there are some parallels in terms of guys that approach the game, and that much I think we all know about Thomas Müller. So when we were in here on Thursday and we wondered, what's there going to be an announcement? I think technically they had to wait until August 1st, right?
Because he was a Bayern product until then, yes.
And then came the long weekend. So he's still coming, and an announcement will happen at some point. We just don't know when. But then the intrigue begins about how quickly is he going to acclimate over here, and ultimately, how soon can we see? I'm sure you've looked at the schedule closer than I have, but how quickly can we see him make his debut?
A couple of road games first. One road game, and then I think 3 in a row at home.
You want him to launch at home, don't you?
Yeah, although 10 minutes off the bench on the road, it's not the end of the world, but it will be interesting to see how quickly they feel like they can insert him. One other little bit of interesting drama around all this is from an ESPN soccer commentator, Derek Ray, who is suggesting that Müller actually ruffled feathers in the Bayern front office by spurning LAFC, with whom they have an official affiliation. It's like a developmental venture they've got both on and off the pitch. Ray making it sound like Müller chose Vancouver for lifestyle choices. Now, this comes out, but there were also reports that LAFC was unwilling to sign him to a DP slot, which the Whitecaps aren't this year, but they will next year. And that soured the deal. So who knows? But one would assume this is the week for what that article in, out of Europe says is maybe the biggest signing in MLS this season. Definitely the biggest signing in Whitecaps history. I think we're comfortable saying MLS Whitecaps history, certainly. Whitecaps are on the road on Saturday versus San Jose, their first action in some time after a long break because the rest of the league is participating in Leagues Cup. So that also will be interesting. They were so exhausted at the end of that portion of the schedule. Are they able to just be, back to their early season dominance when they come out of this, or, are they a little bit dulled by the lack of activity? We'll find out, but I hope that they can finish up this season strong and continue on with where they have been, because it's been such a marvelous story. What was just a nice hot stretch of games in March and April has turned into now, 2/3 of a season, Jeff, and I think everybody just wants this to be real.
Yeah, and this is the downside, I think, for the casual fan is these international breaks, and it's baked into soccer. I get it, but team disappears, and for all that goodwill that they had built up, you kind of wonder, like, where have they gone? But hopefully they come out of that and start to, get back into the rhyme and the rhythm of a regular season schedule. Leagues Cup, is that what I was watching with Seattle and Cruz Azul?
Yes. 7 buzz. So, Whitecaps fans, I joked on Twitter over the weekend, send some flowers to your Sounders compadres, because whatever embarrassment you thought the Whitecaps should endure for their performance in the Champions Cup final, Cruz Azul got the converted touchdown in a U.S. football stadium. 7-0 for the Sounders, including one of the goals of the year.
Yeah, I saw that
on the volley.
There, yeah.
So good on them. Again, the schedule for the Whitecaps, by the way, this Saturday on the road in San Jose, the Canadian Championship road match midweek next week. And then they go back to back home games, hosting Houston, hosting St. Louis. You would think you get Müller appearances in both of those. For what level of minutes? I don't know. But there could be a good bump at the gate. Matt and I, or maybe it was you and I that were talking about, I think you have to declare expectations pretty soon. Like, you make the announcement, he's playing here. I think pretty soon thereafter, you have to tell the fans he's likely coming off the bench versus Houston. We're going to aim to start him on the match, because you don't want people forking over tons of money and going to the Houston game expecting the start.
No, I think it makes perfect sense that you would lay out some sort of plan in the early going at the very least.
After that, I think it's all's fair, but I think it would be a nice first, offering to the fans of what the timeline is expected to be. Here's the menu for today's show, at least the menu as we hope it to be, brought to you by Greta Bar at YVR. Greta's a great spot to watch the game. That menu you can count on. It's a great spot to eat, to drink, and a really good team venue. Team building, summer social event. We still have lots of summer left here. Check out Greta. Great street food. The arcade is so much fun. That's why it's great to bring a group there. For more info and to book your event, go to gretabar.com. Greta Bar's at 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. Easy menus for the month of August generally. Just one guest for us today. And again, we hope, because John Shannon's going to be a little bit tardy. But we'll talk to the pride of all over BC from all over BC. It's a rare home game for him. We'll discuss the Olympics, his chat with Jake DeBrusk, and the Canucks staying quiet for now on the sidelines of all of these NHL events. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to play things a little bit out of order. Hopefully we can rag enough time here. We're live right now. John's going to join us live. And then normally we tag on our pre-recorded segment of the rest of the day in sports. In order to give John a little extra time, what we're going to do is play things out of order. It's going to be like, what was that early Fincher, when the movie that played backwards? Remember that one?
No,
Memento?
I don't.
Memento. Thank you.
Okay. There.
This is a bit of memento here for you.
It'll be in perfect order on the podcast.
So you're going to hear, the audio people, ignore all this. You're going to hear us say goodbye in about 20 minutes' time. Just hang around. Presumably John Shannon will be by right after that. Time for our best bets of the day, brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres and Price. And I'll get us started here, Jeff. The first round of the PGA's FedEx playoffs goes St. Jude, and Corey Connor is the top Canadian. The odds at plus 3,700 for a victory in the opener. But my goodness, it is shocking. The performance is akin to Tiger Woods of late, and the odds makers are starting to hedge in that direction as well. Scottie Scheffler to win, again, with all the best performers of the year. No scrubs at these events. Scottie Scheffler's at plus 290 to win the tournament. To put that in perspective, Xander Schauffele is second at plus 1,700 That is a Tiger Woods gap. So it has taken a while, I think, to get to that level of perspective. But here's the other perspective. And it's been amongst my favorite bets this year, top 5 performance. Scheffler's in the negatives for a top 5. Like they are all but guaranteeing a top 5 performance for Scottie Scheffler. He's at minus 160.
It's interesting you mentioned Corey Connors at plus 3,700. You know who else is at plus 3,700 is Cameron Young coming off his first win.
Yeah.
Like, would you be shocked after 7 runner-up finishes to finally he gets his first win on tour? If he backs it up, it's a limited field, 70, top 70. So that's not where I'm going for my best bet. Now that Cameron Young is off the board, without a doubt, Tommy Fleetwood, the best current active player.
Those are the 2 buzz names. You're right. Yeah.
Without a victory on the PGA Tour. So maybe it's Tommy's time. And again, a limited field here. Doesn't have to beat 155 other guys. Just has to beat 69 other players. I'm going Tommy Fleetwood, and they've boosted him at Bet365. You can get him at plus 2,800 if you think that it's Tommy's time to enter the winner's circle.
Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. Use the code NATION. Bet365 must be 19 years of age. Please play responsibly. Back with everything coming up. Sekeres and Price from the Wall Center. Of course, yes, with Jeff Paterson in for the vacation. Matt Sekeres. We're here in beautiful downtown Vancouver. And the game weekends, a little fewer and farther between this summer, but they're still possible. They're coming. Lions and Whitecaps, not too far away. You've got some warning here. Book your stay at the Wall Center. Enjoy an exclusive Sekeres and Price rate. Call 604-331-1000. Mention Sekeres and Price. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. And turn that game night into a game weekend. It will be a lot of fun. Rest assured. This next segment brought to you by Simply Spiked. If you had a summer hangout and you just missed that perfect drink, Simply Spiked is where it's at. Have you dabbled?
I haven't. I've heard you talk about it an awful lot, and you've piqued my interest, certainly, but I haven't.
I've got a spare box. I'm going to bring it in for you.
I like the sounds of that.
I've got a limeade box, which are now it tells you how much I care about you, Jeff, because the limeades are the
gold standard.
I was going to say the apple of my eye, the lime of my eye.
Yeah,
which sounds stingy. 3 different flavors in each of the variety packs: the lemonade, the limeade, and the peach. So really 9 flavors in all. Contains real juice, 5% ABV. They are just the right mix, especially on a hot summer's day. Such a tasty, tasty treat. And your friends are going to say, really, what are these? And you're going to look like a hero. So make sure you check it out. Simply Spiked are at your favorite liquor store, local or government, and must be legal drinking age. Celebrate responsibly. From disappointment to jubilation at the National Bank Open Tennis Tournament in Montreal, where despite a huge roster of capable Canadians, we didn't see anybody go on a deep run except the youngest one there, the one with maybe the fewest expectations, 18-year-old Victoria Mboko, who didn't come out of nowhere. She's been making some noise. But a wild card entry, and she reaches the semifinal, which goes tomorrow. She knocked off the number 1 seed on the weekend, Coco Gauff, then takes down Jessica Buzas of Spain in the quarter. She's already ensured she'll be in the top 50 in the world rankings.
Yeah, it turned into a great story, and we'll see how far she can push it. And I always love that reaction when a true underdog takes down a giant, and that's what happened on Saturday. I mean, Coco Gauff, and just there's that stunt, like at the final ball sails long and match is over, and there's that sort of stunned moment that she realizes, like, I've just done this. I just beat Coco Gauff, and so good on her. And then, sometimes there's that letdown, but there was no letdown, and she kept the foot on the gas. A straight sets win in the quarters to get to the semis.
Well, she didn't drop a set in either of those two matches I mentioned. She only dropped one set all tournament.
Great stuff.
And just the third wildcard entry to make the semis. This is the fourth youngest semifinalist at the Canadian Open. So the tournament that said goodbye to Jeannie Bouchard effectively says hello to Victoria Mboko. So some nice symmetry there. And you look at some of the names, and I mentioned the third wild card, by the way. Hollop and Selish are the two wild cards, and you see the other four names there. So no matter what category you look at, her unbelievable run here, she's in some pretty storied company.
Well, and also at this time of the year, Canadian Open, and we saw that a lot of top-end players took a pass, certainly on the men's side, but also on the women's, there were some big names missing. That's because they're resting up. They know what's coming, and that's the U.S. Open here in a couple of weeks' time. But to see somebody like Victoria Mboko get on a run, she's going to move into the top 50, as you said. A little bit of a heater here as we head to New York on Labor Day weekend. Like maybe a chance to do what Bianca did a couple of years ago. Layla had the run there as well. Just keep this run of form going for a few more weeks and see how far she can push it.
Add one more tennis hope for every tournament that gets underway. BC Lions back at practice after the week off, but they have a Thursday game in Hamilton, so not a lot of prep left before that one. Obviously, Lions are in fourth place in the West. Fourth. 3-5 on the season. Seems like in the blink of an eye, they went from, resetting the season at 3-3 to boom, 3-5. Can't afford a 3-game skid here. But look at the Ticats. First place in the East. They've won 6 in a row, Jeff.
Well, Bo Levi Mitchell is the front runner to be the most outstanding player in the Canadian Football League. And I know Farhan on the sideline interview after the game here in Vancouver asked him, are you playing the best football of your career? And he said, yes. And so I think a lot of people thought Bo Levi sort of was washed now, that best years were behind him in Calgary. Apparently not. There's a second act here for Bo Levi Mitchell. And this is where I wonder, in a small league like the CFL, is this a good thing for the BC Lions that after a bye week, you're playing the team that just beat you? So the sting should still be relatively fresh, but they also beat you. And so... Yeah. Didn't love the way the Lions defended, certainly the late drive where they kind of dared Bo Levi to beat them by dinking and dunking and just, taking what the Lions were giving, and that's exactly what he did. Lions wanted to take away the long ball. Kenny Lawler has turned into sort of the biggest target in the CFL this season, but they're going to have to make adjustments, and they can't just allow Hamilton to nickel and dime them all the way down the field the way they did the late drive at BC Place. So we'll see what football's a game of adjustments. Lions have had the bye here. They're back to work, and we'll see what kind of tweaks Buck Pierce and his coaching staff can put in place for the rematch.
And if they somehow come up with the win, it's going to really pose some interesting questions for Buck Pierce from the media, I think, is that they would, they're 2-2 now. If they won, though, they go to 3-2 on the road. And we've seen some weird ones at BC Place, and I think people have been critical sometimes on game management and some coaching decisions at BC Place. Already it's kind of notable at 2-2 versus 1-3 at BC Place. If they go to 3-2 on the road, that'll be particularly interesting. So I'm going to be intrigued come Thursday for that. No health report as we speak right now, but we'll get to that probably as the week progresses. To baseball, Jays pounded out 25 hits. They've had a few of these this season, beating the Rockies, looking more like themselves. And that's good because the Yankees have lost 4 straight. Boston is now the team right behind the Jays, 3-game lead over Boston right now. But the Jays need to find themselves again. They have been scuffling along, 5-5, 4-6 in their last 10 games, whatever it is. Shane Bieber, by the way, looked good down in Buffalo in his first quote-unquote Blue Jay start in the minors, albeit. So that looks promising for the former Cy Young winner to be a true Major League Blue Jay in the not too distant future. I'm sure they'll percolate him just a little bit longer, but that's the intrigue here is Shane Bieber dropping in. And I think he pitched 5 for Buffalo. So it's not like he's coming in as a pure bullpen threat. If they feel like he can start games for them, I'm sure they're going to let him start games for them.
Yeah, it was funny. I was dipping in and out of that game yesterday. 7 runs in the 3rd inning, 5 in the 7th. The hits just kept coming.
Yeah.
25 hits on the day. Now, it's the Rockies, and the Rockies are dogs this year. And, of course, Coors Field, it's altitude, all that kind of stuff. But Blue Jays did what they had to do. They had a middling weekend home set against Kansas City, so they wanted to get back on board. Well, that's a great way to start a road trip that's going to take them to face the Dodgers later on here. But right now, absolutely smacked Colorado around like a lot of teams have done. The Rockies are 30-82 on the season.
30, and that's a mandatory sweep at this point. After all the changes you make, and you want to consider yourself a titan of and they're within percentage points of being the best team in Major League Baseball. They are the best team in the American League. I'm
coming around on them, Blake. I've never been against the Blue Jays.
No.
And Matt and I have always sort of had this running gag about
Mariners versus
I'll take
Jays.
the Mariners,
Yeah,
you take the Blue Jays. They seem like a pretty likable bunch, though.
Yep.
And the way they're getting it done, and you think too, like it wasn't that long ago, people wanted to run John Schneider out of town. This guy's in over his out of his depth. He doesn't get it. He's a minor league manager. For a while there, they were the best team in baseball and still have a chance to end up being the best team in baseball. So, it's kind of a nice redemption arc for a guy that cut his teeth here out at Nat Bailey.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know. I just, there is something, like, I can kind of get behind this version of the Blue Jays.
Mariners had the day off yesterday. They're 3 back of Houston in the division. And, they're still in the division race here. It should be less. The Astros are struggling, but Seattle's been middling of late themselves. It should be 2 or 1 game back of Houston right now. Eugenio Suarez seems to be enjoying his return. Last time he was at the Sounders game on the weekend as well. So he's enjoying being back in Seattle. We'll see what the M's can do. They're in a wild card spot, should be mentioned. They are in the playoffs as we speak. They're the 3rd wild card, tied for the 2nd wild card, if you will, with the Yankees. And they'll just want to improve their lot of life, and they've got the chance to win a division. Anytime you're in the mix there, you put the pedal down. So we'll see what the M's can come up with. As for the C's, Fernando Perez took a perfect game into the 5th on Sunday, en route to a victory in his 4th quality start of the season. Matched his season high with 7 Ks. He's now got 20 consecutive innings without a walk. This backed up a great start earlier in the week. So boom, the Nicaraguan is the Northwest League pitcher of the week. He's the Jays' 11th ranked prospect, but could be in store for a rise in the rankings if it continues like this. Homestand begins tonight at 7:05 in Nat Bailey Stadium. A nooner coming up on Friday, and the weather is looking great for that. Fireworks game on Saturday, and again, weather looking great. So particularly for those weekend outings, make sure you get your tickets. It's the summertime. Get your tickets early, 604-872-5232, or check out CanadiansBaseball.com. And one final note, Jeff. Congrats to friend of the show and former president of Canada Soccer, Charmaine Crooks. And this is a recipient of the Order of BC. Congrats to Charmaine, top-notch athlete, Olympian, and diplomat in a variety of sports.
One of 15, I think, that's receiving that honor in September. So, congratulations.
Poll question from yesterday. Last time out. Who will lead the Canucks forwards in points this coming season? And this is in light of the fact he was 5th this year. It should be noted.
I was surprised at the runaway here.
Elias Pettersson with 84.5% of the vote.
Like I think he will, and we said the other day he kind of has to.
But
I also think there's a segment of the fan base that has kind of washed its hands of Elias Pettersson. And so I was surprised to see 85% saying, it's going to be Petey.
The other surprising thing of the almost 1,500 votes, second place, a player yet to be acquired. Now it's by slim margin, 7.1% for him. Brock Besser, 5.1%. And Connor Garland at 3.3%. Those are the incumbents, by the way. Those are the 2 guys that were the forward leaders, and you're not giving them much of a chance to be that again. So Thanks for your votes in that one. E's and O's. Well, we mentioned Victoria Mboko today. We did not mention her the last time. We thought Gabriel Diallo, who got to the third round on the men's side, that he was the sole remaining singles player left. We forgot.
Shame on us,
Victoria, and clearly not the case. So we are back squarely in her corner and can't wait for the semifinal tomorrow. We, and I say that loosely, are back tomorrow on YouTube and Twitter. The show is back tomorrow on all our socials as well, here live at noon. I won't be here. Matt won't be here. But Sekeres and Price, the brand, lives on. Thanks to Jeff Paterson and Patrick Johnson, who will take you through the rest of the week, which, of course, is just Wednesday and Thursday, Friday off, and get used to that. We will be slimming down as the month progresses here on Sekeres and Price, but we want to make sure that we stick it out for the rest of this week at the very least. So Wednesday and Thursday shows with Jeff Paterson and Patrick Johnson. Thank you for doing this and that, by the way.
Yeah, well, enjoy your downtime.
Yes, thank you.
Well deserved. And yeah, you got a taper here in the month of August so that you're ready for the big post-Labor Day run back into the hockey season.
Don't forget to support all of our fabulous sponsors. Thanks for supporting us, whatever that us looks like, and thanks for keeping it local. The Vancouver Canadians are back at the Nat. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com. From one of our top contributors on today's chat on YouTube. Colin in the chat says, do you think if Taves has a good start to his season, can he make the Olympic team for Canada? And it took me 2 seconds to realize what this statement meant.
Likewise, I thought we already talked about Devon Taves.
Yes.
Devon Taves is going to be on this. Oh, you're talking about Jonathan Taves, Captain Canada. Well, we went through a long list of long shots and a guy that's been out of organized hockey for a couple of seasons. I'm curious to see what training camp looks like and the preseason looks like. The idea of Jonathan Taves ramping it up to be ready to be part of an Olympic team. Yeah, you're not getting my money.
No.
I'm not putting my money down on
think
JT.
so.
We already talked about the other John Tavares being a long shot. I think you put that JT. Jonathan Taves in that category as well.
We have a John coming up in just a second, but first we want to talk to you about your golf game, a golf game that you don't even know that you have right now because you haven't played much. Maybe you're a raw beginner. Well, it's time for you to get golf ready at the Redwoods Golf Course. The adult group golf lessons for beginner golfers are a heck of a deal. 4 one-hour lessons over 4 weeks for $160. It's a relaxed, no-pressure way to learn the game of golf. And the next class is coming up fast, starts August the 14th. You got time, though. 9 days before the start time. Maybe you've happened upon a set of clubs and you've wanted to get better. Well, private, semi-private adult lessons are also available, flexible to your schedule. But for that group lesson info, go to redwoods-golf.com/instruction and get your golf game golf ready at the Redwoods Golf Course. Without further ado, and you've already seen him as a small little box on today's show because John Shannon had Jake DeBrusk on his show earlier this week, and we chatted about that. And he joins us from Oliver, British Columbia, no less. The man, the myth, the legend around those parts. John, thank you. How are you?
Well, I missed that par putt on 18 to lose to Bob Nicholson, so I'm not very happy.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Was it honestly that close?
Oh, yeah. We were even going to 18, and I yanked the putt. Not happy.
Get golf ready. The Redwoods Golf Course is waiting for you. There you go.
I actually made the note there. I might need to go in for those lessons.
Hey, a guy that is synonymous with Hockey Canada, despite moving on from there, is Bob Nicholson, and they're having this orientation camp later in the month with the bigger group of players. With that men's list that went out in particular here, John, did anything stand out in terms of the extra bodies that they're bringing into the fold? Do you think there's anybody on those lists that absolutely has a chance to wrestle away a spot?
Well, I think you probably have to look at, are there a few guys at the bottom of the list that played in 4 nations that can they do better than? I mean,
Yes.
and you know, how did you manage to think Travis Konechny played in the tournament? Can they do better than Konechny? Now they actually get another extra body too, right? You can travel 25 as opposed to 23 that they used in Four Nations. So I didn't have an issue with any of the names that were on the 42. I still think there's a possibility that if a guy gets off to a hot start during the regular season, that he will not have had to go to the orientation to get a chance to play on this hockey club. So I'm still a little more open-minded, I think, than lots of people, even considering the 42 is pretty broad when you look at the list of those guys.
Were you at all surprised? We touched on this a little bit earlier. If for me at least, if there was a surprise, it was that they only are bringing 3 goalies to this orientation camp. The 3 guys that were there at Four Nations, and Jordan Binnington would seem like he's got the inside track and would really have to be bumped out of that position come tournament time. But just the idea of competition, like there are extra bodies at every other position, but they only brought 3 to this orientation camp.
Well, unfortunately, I think, Jeff, it speaks to what people view as some level of strength that we don't have in the position right now. There's no doubt that this is Jordan Binnington's job to screw up, or if he's injured between now and going to Italy, that's a problem. I do think Aiden Hill will probably get an opportunity to play some games in Italy. But in the end, I think it's a classic case of let's not waste any time. That's the one position where we know we have the 3 that we like, and we'll go with the 3, and we'll leave it at that. And if some Canadian goalie, and you know, we're going to have to scour the rosters of teams. If some Canadian goalie has a great first half of the NHL season, then why not give a chance? But right now, I don't think anybody's going to beat Jordan Binnington out anyway.
Binnington won hockey games and won a gold medal. Did he win people over? Like, do you think this is still a conversation heading to the Olympics?
I think goaltending is always a conversation. I mean, guys, I don't know if you recall 2002, we won the gold medal, but the biggest controversy was Pat Quinn's decision to go away from Curtis Joseph and go to Marty Brodeur in Game 3. And Curtis Joseph and Pat Quinn rarely spoke after that for the rest of their careers. So goaltending is always going to be a problem. And that's just not a Canadian thing. Again, those Olympics in Salt Lake City, just ask Tommy Salo how his life has been since those Olympics and playing in Belarus. So I think it's going to be a controversy. I think we go into the Olympics as Canadians much more confident about Jordan Binnington than we were going into Four Nations, because he did play that well. But I think there's always going to be a discussion if either Montembeault or Hill don't have a good first half, and we start to say, well, maybe we should think about a different second goalie or a different third goalie.
You mentioned the expanded rosters, which you're right. There's just normal attrition at the bottom of that Four Nations roster, and the expanded slots as well, which make it interesting for me for a specialty player of some sort.
Yeah,
and that could be
a power play guy. I think. Or a penalty killer. Yeah,
an Evan Bouchard. You know, do they need him? Nope. Could he be good to have around? Yeah. Tom Wilson. They didn't have a whole lot of feistiness. He would add that. They're gone back to smaller ice. That's sort of in Tom Wilson's favor, I would suggest. But of course, we know international officiating, don't we, John? And most of what Tom Wilson does, it's not suspendable anymore. He's figured that part out a little bit better, but it's usually punishable by virtue of a penalty.
Well, not suspendable in the NHL. But the IIHF still plays different rules in this tournament. We are playing the smaller North American ice surface, but we're playing IIHF rules. So a hit to the head that would be viewed as maybe a 5-minute major in the NHL could be viewed as a game suspension. And so you do have to be a little more concerning. You bring up a really good point, though, Blake. Does Four Nations and the tenacity of the Four Nations, even the way the Swedes and the Finns played, does that change the philosophy of how teams will approach the Olympic tournament? But I do think that people in the end will say, no, we're not playing NHL rules.
That's
like
right.
we did then. We're going to play federation rules, and they are much more stringent when it comes to hits to the head and certain, penalties of interference.
We were talking Quentin Byfield, not a tough player per se, but he's a big body at the very least. He's, do guys like that become tempting?
Well, both Wilson and Byfield to me would be, I think, great additions.
Yeah.
The one thing that I think we learned, and I think we learn this all the time in big events, whether it's the Stanley Cup final or the Olympics, is big bodies work. And that's why I think you go to, when you think you're going to go small and fast, big and fast is better than small and fast.
That's right. For this level, you're right. Yeah. You're not building an NHL team here where you're gambling on a fourth liner who's big and fast. These are elite big and fast, which at this best on best level, that you have those.
So then I would do that very thing, as I would try to find the biggest and fastest guys. And again, you don't have to play them every game. You're in your round robin tournament part of the tournament. You're going to have that opportunity to give everybody a chance to play and participate. And then your point about Evan Bouchard's a good one, because if you recall, I think in Sochi, the seventh or eighth defenseman was PK, and PK Subban, I think in the end played 8 minutes in the whole tournament to get his gold medal, because they could use him in one game on a couple of power plays. And that was all the ice time he got.
I want to take the conversation here from this Olympic camp and then turn it in a slightly different direction, John. Sidney Crosby, part of the group, of course. Sidney Crosby is also going to be 38 on Thursday. I'm curious, and just asking for a gut feeling. He's got 2 years left in his contract. We all know that the Penguins aren't very good. Is he going to ride it out, or will Sidney Crosby play for another National Hockey League team before all is said and done?
I don't ever see Sidney Crosby leaving Pittsburgh, ever. I just don't. I think that, he, in many ways, he has modeled himself after the person who he roomed with the first couple of years he was in Pittsburgh, and that was Mario Lemieux at Mario's house. Mario never played for any other team. Mario is still a legend in Pittsburgh. I think Sidney understands the value of what the Penguins are and what he is to the city of Pittsburgh. He doesn't. It's not a Ray Bourque situation where after 20 years he hasn't won the Stanley Cup. His name is on the Stanley Cup enough already. I think if you're considering legacy, to play your complete career with one team would be part of a legacy I think that Sidney Crosby would think is honorable. And I think that's the one word that I would always use when it comes to Sidney Crosby, that he's an honorable player and respects the game and respects the Penguins and respects the Penguin fans. And I would, everybody thinks that he's rubbing his hands together at some point to go and play in Colorado with Nate McKinnon. I just don't see him leaving Pittsburgh ever.
3 straight 90-point seasons here at this stage of his career, but he's going to be in tough. They're going to be in tough.
And how many players has he tutored? How many players has he, made better over the years? How many guys have played with Sidney Crosby to go and make $50 or $60 million? Young guys that they've said, okay, Sid, you've got to make this guy better. You've got to lead by example. You've got to be that centerman. And he's done it time and time and time again. And I think that's part of his legacy.
A couple more things to get to before we send you off into the streets of Oliver. Your fabulous chat with... Street. You had a chat with Jake DeBrusk. Boy, you had trouble getting a word in edgewise, as opposed to a lot of our encounters with athletes where it's tough to get words out of them. You had trouble getting words in. That was a fun chat.
Well, thank you. I think it was too. And I must admit, I think we knew that going in. Both
yes,
of you
we
have
did.
talked to Jake, and Jake is such a likable young man. Comes from great breed. There are days I have a tough time getting in the word with Louis too. So that's and we were sitting on the same panel when we were doing it. So it's okay. I just think he has such a great outlook on life, and it makes you understand why people think he's a great teammate. I think that he's a foundational guy for this team now. I think he's one of those guys when you say, how can this team turn around? It's a positive outlook, a positive appeal of a guy like Jake DeBrusk.
Yeah, I thought the answer about to the question about Elias Pettersson, where he took on ownership of Pettersson's struggles, and he wasn't trying to throw his teammate under the bus or hang him out to dry. No, I wasn't good enough for him. Forget him not being good enough for the expectations. I thought that was a really fascinating answer.
I got a real kick out of it. He said, I was really trying to be his friend. Yeah. I was really trying to. And I think I'm not sure there was enough guys trying to be Elias's friend during the season last year, and hopefully it's that kind of camaraderie. That's the one thing I will tell you in the group of interviews we've done this summer on this group of podcasts is there does really sound like there is an affinity of this group, this core group, whether the Connor Garlands and the Jake DeBrusks, that want to make a difference in Vancouver, and it really does point things in a very good direction. I think coming off what I would describe as nothing short of a soap opera last year.
Don't you get a feeling, though, like they're banking on vibes an awful lot? Like, and that can be dangerous. Like in the summertime, you can say that, but ultimately, you got to get out there and win hockey games. And I mean, good vibes can certainly help in that regard, but it feels like this group is really leaning into this idea that the locker room air has been cleaned and they have all turned a page after what went on here last year.
Well, you hope they've turned the page. I think the three guys that they signed before the deadline, Jeff, in Garland and Demko and Besser, I think that was almost a sigh of relief for everybody else in the dressing room to say, oh my goodness, guys actually want to come and play here again or want to stay here. And I think that was an important aspect. You look at the roster and you think that, 2 years ago, a lot of guys had career years. Last year, not many guys had career years. And so if a half dozen guys can have better years, then this team does have a chance, because what we do know about the division they're playing in, it's not going to get any easier, because there are a couple of teams in the division getting better, like Anaheim is getting better. So the Canucks are going to be in tough to be a playoff team, probably if they are a wild card team, but that's still an improvement over what they had to go through last year, particularly the way they kind of fizzled out after the Four Nations.
Which brings us to the cap space that remains. Every fortnight, every week goes by chatting with you, and it remains ever since they created it. And I see the YouTube chats going off. Everybody's trading for Pavel Zacha or Marco Rossi or whomever. I mean, do you hear any noise right now? And do we survive the month of August with this cap space in hand now that we've turned the page here?
I thought this week would start to get busier. Maybe it's only Tuesday.
Yeah.
Maybe it will get busier as a week. I thought this week, with people coming back to work, most teams are back at work now across the league. I thought the phones would start to ring between the general managers, but everybody thinks they're going to go out and get a steal, and they're not. You're not going to get Marco Rossi for nothing. And I'm not even sure, as I said a couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure Rossi's the answer anyway. But if you could find a veteran number 2 center, it's going to cost you a pretty penny, and then you have to decide what you're prepared to give up in order to do that. So I still got my fingers crossed that there's going to be some activity in the first half of August, but it's still yet to be. What is today? The 5th. So it's still yet to be, and I think I'm a little bit surprised at that. Although I did, we did have Don Waddell on one of our other shows yesterday, and Don thought it was going to be quiet this week. So in the end, what do you know? And it's going to take one manager to make a trade, and then all the other guys are going to start to pile on and try to find a way to improve their club.
How many GMs are fretting having unsigned RFAs on August the 5th? Do they still see 6 weeks, 7 weeks of runway and are not sweating, or would they rather this be done sooner rather than later?
Well, I think in the end, what's happening now is unrestricted free agents. I think there's more sweat going with the players than there is the managers, quite frankly. And, what we're going to start to look at is guys not getting the offers they expect to do sign 1-year deals for $1 million or even the minimum, just to take the year and prove what better players they are, and then take another chance next summer with the new CBA.
That's for UFAs. How about the RFAs,
Yeah.
though, like Rossi and McTavish and all those guys?
No, I this is the one time in the cycle of a player's career where the team has the leverage. The team has the leverage. They still own the restricted rights. And I tell you what, Mason McTavish is a hell of a hockey player. And Pat Verbeek, it's almost like he's playing with house money at this point, and he knows what poker game he's playing, and he's going to be in his position, and he's already figured out the dollar figure that Mason's going to have to take, whether it's on a bridge deal or not, or if he wants to go long term. Here's the dollars, and McTavish is one of those guys saying, "Hey, listen, I'm better off waiting because there's going to be more money available in the new CBA, so I might be better taking that bridge deal too."
Anything else for John? We're ready to roll. You're ready to get into Oliver and sip some wine and post-mortem with Bob, so we will let you get back to that.
I don't think we're not on speaker right now, so.
Is there not a rematch in the offing here?
Oh no, there's a rematch tomorrow. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. So you don't have to stew on the missed putt for too long.
No, but I have to live through dinner tonight hearing how great he was. So it's unbelievable.
Hit it straight tomorrow. Thank you for this, John. Appreciate it.
Have a great week, boys. Enjoy some time off next week, Blake.
Thank you. John Shannon, host of 100% Canucks and 100% Hockey, the podcast.